So, trilobites were a very interesting creature, armored, large, like decently large. There are some that grow up to 3 meters when they're standing. Now, if you see one, it's most likely going to be the size of my pendant if you see the fossil of one, because if you even got one of those, an actual one, it would cost billions of dollars just to pretty much touch it. So, not too long after that, life became more advanced. Creatures start evolving more and more, such as all these nice little things. Pikia, or Pikaya, I think it was, lived only 530 million years ago, a little longer than trilobites. This was a very worm-like creature, just swimming through, minding its own business, but was very weak. Had nothing really to stand up for it, like it didn't even have a spine at that point. A few other creatures started evolving, such as one of my favorite ancient predators, Anomalocaris. So Anomalocaris was the first creature ever to exist with eyes, and the first super predator to be around on Earth. So a super predator is a creature that's able to go around and kill everything. It's the top of the food chain. As people would say, it would probably be a lion. Not true. Still, that is one of the super predators today. So, Anomalocaris looks a little interesting. A little different from most things you would think you would see at that time. So it had bony plates that worked as almost wings through the water, like fins. And then also tusks. As you can tell, a Pokemon was based after it. This is how I remembered about this. I'm like, oh, Anomalocaris. Oh, wait, Pokemon. So I can't remember what's up at next. This is what happens a lot. So again, this is Pikia, or Pikaya. I always get that mixed up because it sounds a lot like pecan. Very, very different. So now creatures start developing limbs. This was 365 million years ago. A creature developed proper limbs, and lungs were developed enough to be able to actually breathe real air. This was when oxygen was just being created on Earth, and there's very little. So this right here is a Acanthostega. Pretty sure I pronounced that right. Yeah, Acanthostega. So this was the first creature that scientists had found with actual proper limbs. Very few creatures at that time probably had limbs, and they probably looked over at him and was like, what's up with this guy? What's going on right here? Is he food? I don't know. Is he dangerous? Ah, whatever. I'll just leave him alone. 300 million years ago, the thing with the name that I always get wrong, Hylonomus. There we go, finally got it on the first try. So this creature was one of the first ever reptiles. Probably looked a lot like a modern lizard. This was just an artist's interpretation. If this was a real one, right now we would probably all not exist. So it had very small, sharp teeth used for killing probably centipedes, which were around back then, and other prehistoric insects. So not too long after reptiles start evolving, creatures start splitting off into two directions. Sauropods, or sauropsids, that one's really hard to pronounce, and Synapsidia. Sauropsids became modern birds and reptiles, and Synapsidia became modern not reptiles. I just said that. How did I mix that up? Became modern mammals. So the earliest mammal-like creatures were called pelycosaurs. Pelycosaurs were the earliest type of creature that was directly related to mammals. This is not a pelycosaur. I got mixed up and forgot that the one right before this was. So That was Cynognathus, a cynodont. Cynodonts are a connection in between Synapsidia and mammals. Right before cynodonts were theraphids, which is another thing that's really difficult to pronounce without mixing it up. So not long after that, in 160 million years ago, I forgot to say that Cynognathus existed 220 million years ago. 160 million years ago, another name hard to pronounce, Jeremiah Sinitses. That's what this guy is. So this is the earliest known Eurythanian mammal, which is just a mammal that's very small and very mouse-like or monkey-like. Between 30 and 25 million years, our ancestors looked a lot like modern-day monkeys and apes. That's pretty much the extent of what happened back then. Everything else that happened, I wasn't able to find. So between 15 million years ago through 6,000 years ago, we became more human-like. 6,000 years ago, first humans became existent. That was the beginning of Homo sapien. Now I'm going to pass it over to my friend who will talk about the future of Homo sapien.
Homo superius is just around the next corner. It's waiting to take our place. Let's think about what would it take to happen. I'm thinking it would have to create some kind of bottleneck or isolated place for a founder person and his or her mate to create enough babies to successfully not be able to inbreed anymore. Hold on, I gotta remember this. What if there was an enormous war and all intercontinental transportations were cut off, like ships, the internet, and airplanes? I know, the internet would be cut off. Perhaps then an isolated population of people would live apart from the rest of us. Just think about all the accents we have for just English. We have Irish, American, English, Australian, name it. When human populations are even the slightest bit separated, changes might happen. There can be colonies on Mars. That would be a profound, definitely profound separation. Now that's a little weird, but I'm going to go with it. I did not prepare my own slideshow, by the way, so I have no idea. Well, I kind of do. We cannot step away from evolution. Our genes are always collecting mutations, and we are always making mate selections. Are humans preferably mating with other humans who are tall, not blonde, name it? I have a couple questions in these, and I'm going to answer them by myself, apparently. Are smart people actually producing smarter babies who will end up making more money and ever so outcompeting other families? Or is being smart a losing trait? Since highly educated men and women have babies later in life than those who think their best childbearing years are in universities. Whoops, that was a paragraph I wasn't going to read, but okay. Let's skip that. More likely than a future race of human smart people who will outcompete the rest of us is a strain of Homo sapien, I can't read that word, that can beat a disease. That is probably the most important evolutionary sift that any future person is going to have to get through. Just think about the Spanish flu in 1918 and 1919. Over 50 million people were killed by something far too small they could see, let alone hunt. The Black Death in the 14th century. It may have killed up to 200 million. We are descendants of people who just happen to have the right genes to fight off the deadly virus and bacteria. Babies in industrialized areas have access to milk like no one before us. Maybe a genetically tolerance for milk will slowly help more of those babies survive until they are kids of their own. There is evidence that people with especially high and especially low blood sugar levels have fewer offspring. So subtle changes will make their own way into the human population, and that is going on right now. If you want to reach toward a fiction future of a human evolution, it's fun to speculate, so why not? It seems pretty fun when you think about it. Think about just mechs. A much more reasonable, perhaps irreventable factor is genetic engineering. Medical scientists are on the very edge of being able to ensure your baby does not suffer from Huntington's disease or have flat feet. Will it be even possible to make babies genetically smarter or even better hockey players? Or is that even sort of thing even ethical? As a person, each of us have interesting decisions to make about what's allowed in medicine. We may have to address genetically modified people among us who came through some sort of outlawed future genetic engineering technique. What would be the status of human clones? In contrast, I'm looking at the big changes that come out of good old-fashioned Darwinism, natural selection. Thank you, Mr. Darwin. What trait would give some future human baby such an edge that she or he will grow up to produce some amazing new kid that can do something that stands out, like being the first person to go in space without a spacesuit? And will attract a similarly worthy partner to make a baby with. Thank you for that laugh. I needed it. I've heard so many girls say that they love a guy with a sense of humor. Will some future guy be so funny, and I'm not saying funny looking, but so hilarious that his sense of humor will win him partners? Will his command of irony be so good that women go wild for him and reproduce wildly? Legions of present and future stand-up comedics hope so. And that is the end of our presentation. You guys have